Denise Rokicki, and I'm on a journey to heal.
Beautiful. That's my friend Denise, who in a few words says what I say in many words. And it's all good because many words can sometimes be powerful and few words can be. So I'm Holly Elissa Bruno, and I am a trauma survivor. And at the same time, I'm a trauma survivor. I'm a person who chooses to find meaning, purpose, love, ease, as opposed to dis-ease, and yes, joy in my life. And I also choose to face the difficult things which have stopped me from being able to find joy. And so today we're going to talk about joy, and we're going to talk about joy in this context. I'm just back from France. Literally yesterday, I was skimming over the Atlantic, and that was kind of a miracle because in the past, I was so afraid if I lost touch with my identity that I would be overtaken. I would just lose who I was. And so I held very tightly to who I was. And I think that perhaps is something that we'll talk about. Do trauma survivors do that? Do we hold really tightly to what we know? Because if we get out of our space of knowing, it's terrifying. And Denise and I perhaps both will share with you so that we as children didn't have safety, and they had the opposite. We had the opposite of safety. We had terrifying spaces. So for me to choose to go to another country and to find my way to feel at home there, that's part of my trauma recovery. And I want to talk about that. So Denise will talk about her discovery of joy, and I'll talk about my discovery of joy from being constricted and confined to who I thought I had to be. But if you're just joining us for the first time, we are two trauma survivors walking each other home. And Denise has got her thumbs up. What's that about, sweetie?
Oh, that's my shirt.
We can see the hands, all the hands. What's the wordage underneath the shirt? It says be kind. Oh, I love that. That is Fred Rogers. Do you know this quote from Fred Rogers? He said, there are three ways to be successful. The first is to be kind. The second is to be kind. And we all know the third, just be kind. So if you're joining us, I want to let you know that in 2020, which is now 4 years ago, oh my goodness, this book was published in March, which is exactly when the trauma of COVID came out. This book is called Happiness is Running Through the Streets to Find You. That's a quote from Hafiz, who said, ever since happiness heard your name, it's been running through the streets to find you. And so when I was asked to write a book, I thought, it's time. It's time to tell the truth from the heart and the soul about being raised without joy, being raised without being loved, being raised without being wanted, being raised with violence, being raised with mental illness, being raised with narcissism. It's time to tell the truth about that. And instead of stopping right there and say, well, that's who I am, it's a possibility. In fact, it's become my choice for life. And Denise will talk about that too. How have we chosen to reclaim our lives as we might have had them when we were born, when we came to the earth? Denise and I work with people, and Denise is one of those people who loves a child from the minute she sees the child. I do too. I'm just fascinated by what is this universe of this child that's going to greet me. And Denise has worked with children for how many years? 30?
Yeah,
How many
long
years?
time.
Long time. Okay, now I've worked more with adults, and I see the child in each adult, which means I see the soul and the essence of each person. And that has helped me a lot. So, by the way, if you're joining us for the first time, or if you've been with us for a long time, the second part of this title is and this is our theme. How do we translate trauma's harsh legacy into healing? It's on Amazon, etc. But how do we translate the pain, the sorrow, the grief, the rage into healing? So here we are. We'll be with you for an hour. And Denise, I'll be watching the clock.
All
You know,
right.
I don't know how to do that, but I'll give it a try. So I want to check in with Denise, for whom, when I asked her what topic she might want to talk about, she had a one word, three letter sacred word. And so, Denise, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear your experience with joy.
Well, you know, as an abuse survivor, a trauma childhood, we were forced by our circumstances to be not expressive of our feelings. Really try not to even have feelings.
And what was the danger, Denise? If we had feelings, what was the danger? And if we showed feelings, what was the danger? Because that's crucial.
Well, in my family, you would be crazy. And, you know, I just believed I would be out of the family, you know,
Right. So rejection,
rejection.
labeling, being insane, and just not belonging. And we've talked a lot on this program about how, Maslow said our most important need is food, shelter, warmth, etc., clothing. But Matthew Lieberman is saying something very different, having looked at brain science, and he's saying no, people can live. Actually, they do. Uh, Without enough food. Look at it's horrible to think of all the babies that are surviving without food. They live. But what we can't live without is feeling like we belong somewhere, feeling like someone loves us. And Denise, joy is part of that, I think. And I'd like to hear more. You were taught not to feel and
Right.
not to be in touch with feelings and not to show feelings, because that was dangerous
Right,
too. If you showed feelings, you got, in my case, punished. It was punitive.
right. So I became, you know, good at that. And the danger of that, being good at that, is you temper all of your feelings and your sensations, and which I do. And so I had yesterday, I had joy. I felt it. Was able to say, "This is joy right here. This is joy." And it was so cool.
So
So
can
I'll
you
tell you about my
describe?
day.
Yeah, I
Huh?
want to hear about it. I want to hear about your day when you felt
Yes.
that.
So this day I woke up and did my yoga the whole hour, not just the 20-minute warm up, which I do sometimes. And then I went for a walk in the woods, wild woods, with a couple friends. And then I went to a demonstration for women's reproductive rights.
Ah,
And all of those things were building joy. Uh,
where did you
the
feel it? I want to ask you, sweetie, where did you feel most at home?
uh, at home was when I got back home
Okay.
after this day of being out.
Ah,
It
okay.
was I
Because
was out all day. I got a haircut. I, you know,
yeah,
did
that's
a lot of
good.
things, and had to go by, you know, because this was the party that lasts, the joyful, most joyful
Ah, yes, keep
in
going
the
about your
day.
day.
Right, was at the party. But all of these things, you know, like I listened to a program on NPR about called The Hidden Brain, and they talked about feelings are not something that you try to get. You don't go for them. You they come past you and you acknowledge it and enjoy it. Right. And so I've been, you know, trying to find joy for a long time. You and your talking about this book for these last 4 years that we've been discussing it, um, mention joy a lot. And I'd be like, oh yeah, I don't really have that. Or
Hmm.
nah, that's not for me. That's too much. That's passion and you know, but it's beautiful and I had it and I was able to acknowledge it. So this is how I had it. I went to the party.
What
Uh,
was the party, sweetie? Was it after the reproductive rights thing? Was it for activists or was it just pals?
no, this is the whole, you know, I belong to this group, Bowling Green / Toledo, later in life lesbians. And
Great.
they
I
do
love it.
yeah, they do a lot of activities, a lot. I go to the coffee sometimes in Perrysburg. I've been to out to shoot pool. Well, I just watch them shoot pool. I don't really like to shoot pool. I, just developed friendships. Did
Hmm.
tarot readings for a couple of the people in their backyard when they had a party. Um,
Nice.
a euchre club, and I did tarot card readings for that too. So I'm kind of like, the new age lesbo.
Girl, I love knowing the new age lesbo.
Yeah, that's right. So then,
What's the average age of this crew? Ballpark.
they're like from 55 to 75, really.
All right. So I would be the oldest one there.
You'd be an old one.
Well, Crohn's, here we come. Okay,
That's
so
right.
you had this gathering, which
So we had a
happens every.
gathering, right? Jen Tucker, she's moving out of the house that she's in. It's an amazing, beautiful big yard, perfect for parties. She's
Ah,
had parties there before for this group. And
mm.
so she announced, I'm getting out of here. I'm having a party, grilling and drum circle. And I
Oh,
was like, oh,
great.
I'm on that. I'm on the
Yeah.
drum circle.
Have you
Sign
done
me.
those before? Girl, have you done before?
No, I
Oh,
don't
all
even, I
right.
mean, I have done drum circles at Mishfest. Well, I haven't actually done them, but I've been in the company of them
Yes. Oh,
where
good for
women
you. So you
get
did your
together.
first one.
Right. So I was so excited for it. I've really been looking forward to it for a long time. I have two wagons full of musical instruments.
Oh, good for you.
You want to know how I got those instruments?
Being a
From
Head
Head
Start
Start.
teacher.
Right. Because one time, well, we started doing the project approach
Yes.
for our theme or whatever. And we
By the
did a
but by
music.
the way, for just before you get into that, so for somebody that is not familiar with project approach or maybe even with teaching, what's the point of, because it's important, what's the point of project teaching with children?
Right, is to go deeply into something with as many experiences as possible for the group
Hmm.
uh, around a certain topic.
So
And
your
so
topic was music.
music. And so I posted on Facebook one time, I'm a Head Start teacher. Anybody have any musical instruments they'd love to demonstrate for my class? Or if you'd like to donate them for them to explore. I got so
Beautiful.
many instruments, man. Oh, it was great.
What'd you get? Like, tell me what are
Got a
some
steel
examples?
drum, which my coworker, once I started paring down my teaching stuff, I called
Yeah.
my favorite coworker and I said, Con, is there anything you want out of all these things that I have acquired? And she said, the steel drum. So she
Oh,
came and got it. But I
so
had a big drum, this bit, I have two bongos, I have five triangles, I have everything. I have so many instruments, two wagons full.
oh wow. And did people come and play their instruments for the kids?
Some people did, yes.
What did they play? Like what was one of
We
the
had a piano, we had a clarinet, we had what's Denny Garvin do? Keyboard, maybe? Yeah. We had,
oh
and some parents came drumming, a parent came in and drummed.
wow.
It was
That's so
cool.
good,
I did
girl.
it several years too, so I was always accumulating more. And I bought a xylophone, a accordion.
Oh wow. Did you learn how to play that or does somebody
I,
know?
I don't know how to play any of it. I just make it available to people to find their own joy.
Beautiful.
It was
Beautiful.
awesome. I did take piano lessons as a child, and I could work it out on the xylophone. Twinkle,
Okay.
twinkle, little star. And I taught several kids to play that on the xylophone and on the keyboard
Oh,
because they
good.
wanted to, and they were there. They sat there and practiced and
Oh,
performed it at the end of
sweet.
the school year.
So
But
sweet.
so, these instruments have actually, I never used the triangle, the children's instruments at my school because we had collected a whole set there. I just had these ready for if I could ever do it at story time.
Oh,
which it's a
wow.
lot of supervision, and I would have to have
Yeah.
my con there and everything to help me. So I've never done it
Mm.
at story time, but it's
Okay.
an Ella Jenkins song played on Mr. Rogers' show. It's called Play Your Instruments, and it's awesome. And so that's why I have the one collection of instruments in case I ever get the chance. I
I
never had
love
the
it.
chance yet. So then the
And
other
but
ones,
hang on, sweetie, because by the way, I just want to make sure that people are with us because you mentioned a saint, Ella Jenkins.
yes,
Ella Jenkins, can you, because music I've just presented on this. Music soothes the traumatized soul, and it helps us heal our adverse childhood experiences. And there's something very elemental and primitive and essential about music, much as there is with dance, much as there is with being out of doors, much as there is with laughter. And music is so powerful with children, and it's not just learning a song; it's helping the child find her own song.
right.
Yeah. So Ella Jenkins is a hero for some of us. So talk with us about Ella Jenkins and that
Ella,
song that you chose to use that she did with Fred Rogers.
she is an old black woman, and you can hear it in her voice. That's who she is. And when you hear her speak right at the beginning of the song, she says, "Well, we're going to play our instruments to make a pretty sound. We're not going to bang them and clang them and make a lot of noise. We're going to play them together." And it's just so beautiful. She's like, "Here we are together. We're going to make some music." And
Hmm.
then she starts playing this song. She's got a little guitar that she's
Hmm.
strumming, and it goes, "Play your instruments, makes a pretty sound. Play your instruments, makes a pretty sound."
Um,
And it's a beautiful song. And then she says, "Play your rhythm sticks," which everybody, I passed out rhythm sticks to all these women. There were like 30 women, maybe only
oh,
25. And everybody got to go through my other instruments, two bongos, high-low, triangle, uh, all
love
kinds of
it. I
instruments,
love it.
drums, a lot of drums. And they first got to pick their, we made a big circle of our chairs. And well, I didn't have a chair. I forgot to bring one. So I was sitting on the ground, which is my favorite place anyway.
Great. Yes.
And so people got to choose their instruments. I went around with a bucket full of scarves. They're fluorescent scarves that you can
Oof.
swing. And for first time around, a lot of people said, "Nah, I'm all right. I'm all right." But then as they saw other people picking them, then I went around a second time and half of those people took them that time. Yeah.
Good, 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 good.
So it
Oh
was
my
good.
God.
It was a big circle. And I've seen all these women before, either at coffee or shooting pool, or so we're familiar. We
Yes.
trust each other to a certain
Hmm.
extent.
Hmm.
And it's not really public strangers, it's people that you are familiar with. And
First of all,
so,
there's a commitment to say, I am a member of this group. That's a public commitment. People
right,
are saying, look, this is the way we are, this is who we are, and we're not going to cover it up as we were
right,
taught perhaps 50 years ago, or 40 or
right.
30 or 20 years ago.
That's
Um,
exactly it.
and that's that claiming of an identity.
Yeah,
And it feels, see, as a trauma survivor, I feel safer when I'm with people who are honest about who they are, and they're not pretending to be somebody else. Because I have, as a kid, and you probably did this too, and everybody listening, when you were a child, did you have to enter so many realities, have to enter so many ways of talking with so many different people? Because I couldn't tell what personality, God bless my mother, was going to be. So I learned to talk with all the different ways that she was. My father, I learned to communicate with him, but it was his reality that was in charge. It
right,
wasn't my identity. It was not as if I could bring who I was to them. It's as if what I had to do to survive was to fit their needs. And that's really different than being part of a group where people are saying, this is who I am. And I'm
right.
proud of who I am. And I'm not
And we
embarrassed.
belong. We belong here.
That's it. That's the crucial thing.
Right, that was a crucial part. And there were some new people that I had never seen before, and
Cool.
probably maybe 5 or 7 of the women that were there were brand spanking new, but uh,
Cool.
it was their first event even, so
Oh,
that's pretty
wow.
cool.
Yeah.
And so I dragged my 2 wagons in full of instruments, and then we all said, "Oh, Mary Jo, she's the one that decided it was going to be a drum circle," and
Okay.
so she started pounding on the bongos, and nobody could get a thing going together. There was nobody who knew drumming that could start it with a strong lead and encourage people to join. None of us. And so that's what everybody was looking at me and looking at me, and I go, "Well, I'm not a drummer. I just have instruments." And I go,
Good.
"Normally there's somebody who starts a beat." And so Mary Jo tried a few times, and I go, "You know what? I'm gonna go get Ella Jenkins." And
Good.
so I went and got my boom box and my speaker and turned on Plays Your Instruments, Makes a Pretty Sound. I was in pure ecstasy.
Ah,
Everybody was joyfully hitting their instruments. And I even stopped it for a minute and I go, these instruments have been waiting for this moment right now.
yes. Yes. All of these freely given with love
Right.
to children. Instruments are going to the children within each one of these women. Oh,
Right.
I love it.
They were all like nostalgic about it. When I introduce it to children, it's like, no, you
Do.
do it this way.
Ah,
It's a
really?
lot of teaching of how to use the instruments, you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
When
that's a
you,
different thing. Although when a
right, when
child
you
first
use,
gets an instrument, the child tries to make sense of it on her own. Boom.
they do, right, which
Yeah,
I will put it around, put them out and around, but it's, it's a different energy of playing music.
it
These
is. It's
women were nostalgic and they knew most of them, some of them acted like, 3-year-olds right
right.
away, immediately went to their 3-year-old. So adorable.
I
And
love
yeah,
it.
so then we just put on songs and they played along with other songs because we
So,
didn't have a drummer to lead us,
and you didn't
and
need it. So who
no,
was it? Give me an example of course, keeping confidences, but give me an example of someone becoming 3 years old again and the freedom.
okay. I have air guitars. I collected them in Pasadena for a Cinco de Mayo celebration.
Oh, wow.
This father came in and cut out little guitars and drew the strings and the circles out of, wood.
Ah,
Uh,
ah, ah,
and I had 8 of them to start, but I only have 4 left because I brought them to kids. They get cracked and whatnot.
right.
But so I still have 4. So one of the women was like so rocking out. She was actually in her teen self, probably, her rock
Oh,
and
I
roll.
love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was so fun. And
And
some people,
how did her joy affect other people around her?
we all took everybody started taking pictures of her,
Yeah,
supporting, encouraging,
yeah.
go Jen. Yeah, well, I tried
Go whatever her
not to.
name is. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. We won't
But
know. It's
it
yeah.
was awesome. And everybody tried instruments, everybody
Mhm.
sang along because you can't deny the lyrics.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
Oh my God. So now I want to ask you something about what was going on in the group. In the individuals, you could see the very happy woman doing her air guitar and other people banging or singing or whatever. But what
Shaken.
was the yeah, so it was shaking or swaying. Oh, but what was how would you describe the energies of the group as it switched? Because you talked about in the beginning, people looking at you like this isn't working, we got to
Right.
have something
Wondering,
else.
right. Uh, we were all together. We belonged. It was creating community. That's what this woman that was sitting next
Yes.
to me said. What if you could please tell me spiritually, what benefit does this drum circle have for people? And I said, it builds community. That's
That's
it.
right.
We're built, we belong.
Yes.
So that was cool too. But I just felt, and my face just like
Like
there's
it's,
some, yeah, there's a few muscles right here that they're still like feeling that little goodness, that
yes.
of that I don't, go there. I don't get to that place often. And but it's fun and I like it. And it's not too much and
No.
it's not overwhelming me. It's just like gently urging me to smile about it because it was so good.
Did you ever have a moment of like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be doing this, or wait a minute, this is scary, or wait a minute, I'm going to lose this, or some other
Yeah,
feeling coming in?
no. When I dragged those wagons in, 'cause, I had it was a lot of preparation because
Yeah.
the instruments are all around the house here
Yeah.
where I
Oh,
live.
yeah.
And so I had to bring the wagon in and stack them in right so they were not damaged and
Hmm.
do, a lot. And the other ones I had already kind of sorted for a child experience should that ever
Sure.
happen. So those I just put into the wagon and had to load them into the van. So there's a lot of, you can't have them in when it's really hot because the drums will, it does bad things to instruments to get extremely hot or extremely cold.
Hmm.
So I had to, wait till the last minute to put them in the van and unload them and drag them into the yard. And oh, it was amazing.
So what you just said is powerful too. It does bad things to instruments if they get really hot or really cold. And if we're all instruments,
Right,
children getting really frozen out does bad things to the soul. Children always in hyper alert does bad
right,
things to the brain. And that's the whole thing that I've come to about understanding what what I was so afraid of for so many years with being traumatized. I don't even know the word trauma, but being raised the way I was that I could not get out of the scary place that I went to. Does that make sense?
huh,
Let me say a little bit more, like when things were scary in the house and they would build up and there would be no safe place in the house. And so I was the littlest. So I would go into the living room, which children are not supposed to be in, and I would scrunch up like an embryo behind the biggest chair I could find. The lights were out in the living room, and I would just pray that no one would turn the lights on or that no one would see me. And the thing about being in that state of hypervigilance, also hyperventilation, I was either not breathing and holding my breath or trying not to let people hear me. What I'm trying to say here, Denise, is I think for children that go through that, which is probably many people listening, any trauma survivor knows what it's like to try to become invisible when there's danger. Um, then the issue becomes it's hard to leave that. It's hard to leave that scary state behind. Um, and so, in a way, people that stay in the need to have excitement, like to do those, what do they call, Denise, those
high risk.
high risk and also high, when high something sports, when people do high, I don't know, maybe high risk, but, people do these sports that you could die
Extreme,
doing. What is it?
extreme sports.
See, I don't ever do those because they trigger me. I've tried some, but they trigger me right back into that horrible feeling of I'm not safe. I've got to hunker down. It's not pretty for me, but I know a number of people, more men than women, who love to get into that state of risk. It gives them some kind of energy in their bodies that they love.
Right.
But
You
for
can even feel them on the streets. Guys in red trucks or red cars, man. They just want to go, man.
and that I get, but it's not at home in my body.
Right.
Dancing is at home in my body. And what I'm talking about in terms of joy here is feeling at home wherever I am on earth. That was one of the things I wrote in my women's consciousness raising group when I was 22, 23 years old. And was facilitating a group, and the group was about, we did this thing where we wrote our epitaphs. What did we want said about us as people look back on our lives, or what did we want to be said about us as we look back on our lives? And I wrote two things. I wrote, Holly, she lived her life. And I was at home any place on earth. And the point about that is I didn't feel at home in my own body because it was terrifying sometimes to be in that state. So I dissociated from those horrible feelings. It was terrifying to have the memories that I had. It was terrifying to have the threat of the memories coming back. So it has taken me as a trauma survivor a very long time come home to myself. And look at the name of this program, Two Trauma Survivors Walking Each Other Home. And look at your topic, joy. For me to feel joy, I need to feel at home in myself. Yeah. And you said you felt at home. It sounds like you had a number of homes during the day, Denise, where you were in joy, seeing people be their true selves. And then you got in your own home and you felt safe. So it's not just safe, it's joy. So tell us more. So you were facilitating this whole experience. And that means that people acknowledged you and you were okay with that.
I was.
Tell us about that, because that takes courage.
It was fun. And yeah, I just felt at ease and comfortable. And I was at the women's rally before this, where we had 5 different speakers, and each one of them talked about, their passion, why we have to fight this again, how they fought it before, what we're going to have to do in the future to keep fighting it, every generation. And, they were just speaking their passion, and it just felt, affirming that, and it was 5 different women. So each one's passion is something, a different angle, and, that's what we need to listen to each other about, is our different angles, and be curious about the different angles.
And speaking the truth. And one of the things you just said is each woman was saying what was true for her.
Right.
Could you have felt it if she wasn't?
I don't know. Yeah, probably.
I think you could, Denise. I think because of your many years with children, you could feel when a child was just trying to please you.
Right, or trying to hide something.
Or trying to hide, or trying to be invisible, or I don't want to, or I used to do this all the time as a child. Don't look at my face. Don't see me. Because it was scary. So I believe you can. I believe that. Let's talk about the gifts. One of the gifts of being a trauma survivor is we know, the old saying, you can't bullshit a bullshitter.
Right.
I know when people are telling the truth and being true.
Yes.
And I know when they're not. And so I thrive in going to events like what you went. I would have loved that, going to an event where people were telling their truth. I just got back from this ship of 120 people on a river in France. And I gravitated toward the people with whom I could have real conversations.
Right.
There were a lot of people that were very sophisticated and could have very sophisticated conversations. And what I noticed with one of those women was the energy kept shifting. She would shift, and then she'd ask me a point blank question. And inside myself, I'd be deciding, how much of my truth can I share with this person? Because it wasn't safe yet. And yet there were other people. There was a woman who took pictures of my hair from behind. I don't know what my hair looks like from behind. I just scrunch it, And I said, show me the pictures. And her husband said, come on, Holly knows what it. And I said, no, I don't. I really don't know what my hair looks like from behind. I don't look at it that much. And I don't take a, mirror out to check that out. And as I looked at my hair, I thought, well, now that's a really interesting thing. And why was she taking this picture? She got tears in her eyes about this. It was very beautiful. She had a son and a daughter. She and her husband are pretty traditional. They're sheep farmers, or he is a sheep farmer in New Zealand, and she's always known she wanted to be a teacher. So I got that. And I loved them both. They were just genuine, honest people. We had the best conversations. And at one point, we were sitting next to each other at dinner, and she got these tears in her eyes, and she said, "It's so important to me to tell you this. I feel like with my daughter, who was a free spirit, that I loved her, but that I didn't encourage her to be a free spirit. And I kept trying to teach her how she needed to fit in." And I said, "Well, tell me more about that," because I wanted to know. I mean, all I got was to fit in, shut up, don't, there's no encouragement to be myself. It was just to shut up and fit in. But she wasn't telling her daughter to shut up. She was teaching her daughter the skills to pass in a culture that wasn't necessarily friendly to a free spirited kid. But she got tears in her eyes when she said, "I feel so bad that I didn't affirm my daughter enough to be free. And being with you, I can see what it's like to be with someone who has chosen to be true to herself." And I thought, I was crying too, because she was so moved by this. And I just thanked her. And I said, "Look, I want you to know, please credit yourself with what you did for your daughter. You loved your daughter unconditionally." "Yes, I did." She said, "Yes, I did." And then more tears are coming. I said, "Not every child knows. Not every child knows what it's like to be loved unconditionally."
Right.
I didn't know that. I
I didn't
didn't
know.
know that. And girl, I think there's joy that comes from that. That must be one of the roots of joy. What do you
Right.
think of that, Denise? When you work with kids, you've had kids, you know that people delighted in
Right.
seeing them. Like a parent would come and pick up a child, they go, "Oh, I'm so happy. I love this chico." I
Qué
never, ever.
bonita, mi amor.
Oh, sí, chico rico, papapina. It's just, oh my God.
Yeah, they
Oh,
love it. I
and
like
there's
to
such
see at
joy.
story time too, because at story time, moms get to see what their kids learn. They get really proud of them, and I like to see that too.
Isn't
I
that
did.
beautiful?
I never felt that. That like my mom's like, "Oh, look what she just learned. How cool!" No,
No, there was no awareness. Now, here's something about being a trauma survivor. I don't think that my mother was aware that I was a different person than her. I was someone that was there to help her. And my father, as a narcissist and a sexual predator, I was just prey for him. I was just an object that he used. And I expected, as a human being, as a soul and flesh, I expected that there would be some kind of connection, some kind of interaction. I didn't know how to say that as a child, but I knew that I yearned for connection. And so there's still today at age 78, when I see a parent come pick up a child, or I see a parent just delighting in a child learning, I find that heaven, heaven on
right?
earth.
Yeah, I do too.
And there's joy, Denise. That's a joy we didn't get to have, but we can offer.
Right,
And what you did yesterday, which speaks joy to every cell in my body, is you knew you were doing who you were meant to be. You
right,
brought in your wagons. You knew in advance that there might be an opportunity for this. And
right,
so you prepared your wagon. Might not have happened. Maybe the drum circle would have been just fine. But you had your wagons. People looked to you. Okay, we need Denise. We need you to bring your gifts to this. And once you brought the gifts, people didn't. Some people got it. Some people didn't. I mean, the woman on the air guitar, she's home free,
totally into it. Right,
home free. And then there are other people, and you kick around these diaphanous, neon type scarves. And some people know, that's not me. I'm not gonna take it. But the second time you went around,
they're like,
people had,
"Oh, this is
bring
getting."
it,
And
bring it, honey.
we had a little dance section behind the chairs with the scarves.
Oh yeah. So everyone, what would you say everyone found?
Everybody, in fact, there was a lot of comments. It was so fun. We had fun. That was really fun. And That's what it's all about.
That is, honey. Now I don't want to go intellectual here, but what's fun?
Uh, Freedom, delight, uh, curiosity,
And
uh,
what about joy, girl? So freedom,
longing,
delight.
joy. Yep.
So what's different?
Movement is so good too
Yes.
and
Hey,
there's
and
one
yeah,
woman,
go ahead.
Max. There's one
Uh-huh.
woman, Max, that like everybody knows her for a long time. Because see, these women, I moved away for 35 years. So I
Yes.
never hung around with any of these women that they hung around with each other.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because the
I
lesbian club
do.
ends up being, kind of small.
And
People
back in
know
the day,
each.
girl, there wasn't, I mean, was there freedom to connect when you were in high
No, there
school?
was softball and there was a couple bars. So,
But
uh,
not when you were a kid in school, girl. I mean, as a kid
no,
in
there was
school,
nothing. No.
nada.
My mom told me you have to watch out when you go to the bathroom because lesbians might pass a note to you under the bathroom.
Oh my God. And what'd you do with all those notes?
Right. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh my God. Things were
That's
so
what I
hidden.
knew about lesbians. And then what
That's
I knew about gay men is my evil stepfather had a friend, Ronnie Rose, and they were trapping buddies. And Ronnie Rose's brother, older brother named Dick, was a gay guy who used to go out to the park and cruise
Mhm.
guys, and they would get caught. He was in jail all the time, and
Oh man. Get caught for being yourself.
right. And
There was a
so
place
that's what I knew.
oh girl, I hear you. And I was that just reminded me, I wonder about our folks listening that when I'm whoops, I'm turn this off. Um, I can't talk right now. Please call me back. Thank you. Um, e- Everybody's had this experience, I bet. There was a place on Route 2. Route 2 goes directly from where I live outside of Boston, right into the heart of Cambridge, Mass, and right into Boston. So I take it a lot. And there is what are those called? Like scenic rest spots, right? And gay men, I didn't know this, but gay men would claim these scenic rest spots and know that that was a place where they could meet each other. Well,
Yes.
cool that they have a place where they feel safe, but they weren't safe.
No.
And apparently, like what happened to Dick, he got caught, and not only did he get caught, he got sent to jail
Sometimes he had to go to jail, yeah.
for
But I
being a
mean, how
deviant.
humiliating, and that's what he was known for, that when the guys got together, that's what they talked about. I think I only met Dick once. He was actually uh, he collected moths that were, framed
Oh
onto,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Under
had a
backgrounds,
special way
right?
of pinning them and, displaying them. That was one of his hobbies. So,
Wow.
but I think I've only seen him once or twice, but I knew about him because they talked about him all.
And it wasn't with like, oh, we love Uncle Dick.
No,
He's
yeah,
weird. But what I want to
right.
say happened to this place along Route 2 is they couldn't stop people gathering there. And even with the police enforcement, there was a safe, I don't know safe, but it was a place that gay men could claim as their own. And
Right.
how
They
many places
they
are
knew
there like that?
to go
So
there.
you got it. So what happened? It got totally fenced off. And every time I would go by that in the beginning, I would feel like, what is going on here? Why? I don't
How
understand.
neat.
Just if
Just
we,
exactly, just exactly like they closed the swimming pools when black people were allowed to go to them.
that's right.
Same
That's right.
thing.
That's right. And same thing with being shut out of fraternities, sororities. I'm fortunate to have gone to a college that didn't have sororities. Now, both of my sisters went to co-ed schools and they were in their sororities. And I love watching people from historically Black colleges and universities when they have this great loyalty
They
to the
do. They
sorority.
get a lot of pride in their group, but that is, belonging. They belong.
Exactly. That's the belonging thing. And now I want to say something else, which is that I really respect a man named Charles Blow. Charles Blow writes for the New York Times, and he's Black, and he's from Alabama, I think, and he was raised really poor, and so poor that they would go to this place and eat dirt. And they thought it was great because the dirt had some kind of, what's the word? Some kind of uh, not a chemical as much as a mineral in it that
Salty
tasted,
mineral,
was sweet. So they
sweet.
would go and taste, they'd eat dirt. And he wasn't embarrassed about it, it's what they did. And here's what he said. Now, this was really powerful. He wrote a book that has a biblical title, and it was the first New York opera, Metropolitan Opera, performed his the opera of his book. A friend of his turned it into an opera. But here's what was so powerful. He talked about being a Black man in a historically Black college and joining a fraternity. And he talked about the unspoken side of it. And the unspoken side of it was that there was also, especially when it came to men, apparently, physical abuse, shaming, ostracism. What's, kind of man are you? Can't you take this? It sounds like,
Forced drinking.
yes, forced drinking, forced compliance, forced, and some people died.
Yeah.
They died. And if they didn't die, they were wounded. I have a friend
Traumatized.
traumatized. I have a friend who's a survivor, and without revealing anything else about him, he was spanked rigorously. And when he got older and he had trouble with hernias and all this stuff, he asked the doctor, could this have come from? And what he found out was the regular denial thing. The response that the doctor gave him and other people was denial. Oh, it could have been so many things that caused this. Whereas what he was really asking was, did the
Was I
trauma,
abused?
yes, was the trauma that I faced as a child, did that affect me the rest of my life? And he, pre adverse childhood experiences study, he experienced an adverse childhood experience,
Right.
which was this horrible beating with hands taken down, man smacking man. And that's the trauma that Charles Blow actually describes. And he calls it out. And I'm thinking, thank you. Thank you for telling the truth that these things which we accept as part of our upbringing are traumatizing. And what he also said, and other people have said, is it was a repetition of what the slave owners did to slaves. So it was what, so if we go deeper on that one, that's deep enough. If we look at what that was about, it was about abuse of power. Traumatized children are always we don't have the power.
Right.
And when we try to express it, we're punished. So here's this guy saying this powerful thing. And that's the opposite of joy. That's the opposite of what you're talking about. And I'm wondering, how did we get there? And I think it's because what I'm listening to with you is that you're talking about people having fun. Traumatized children have fun when we dissociate. And that's
Right.
not real fun. It's not the real thing. I've had to
Well,
relearn.
imagination's pretty good. I mean, it is a helpful
Yes.
tool. I'm glad that I have imagination, which
Mm-hmm.
develops in dissociation sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So there
And
are some,
I agree with you, Denise. And so this is something we could really get richly into, is that you had not just a day of joy, but you had a day of fulfillment, fun, connection, community, openness, communication, appreciation, nonverbal connection. And I want to share this last thing. When I was studying, and I still am, music and trauma, when we sing or make music together, And Ella Jenkins knows this from her soul,
Right.
from her heart, from her wisdom, from her brain. She knows this. When we make music together in unison, our bodies synchronize
Right.
rhythms. And so drum circles are one of the ways, if you can get into a drum circle and feel comfortable, it's a way that people feel like in unison together, they're
Do
home. It's
choir,
almost like,
singing,
yeah.
singing next to someone, either matching their sound or harmonizing with their sound is really good for your brain
And that's how I survived as a child. I
and your
learned the
body.
harmony, the altoed harmony of all the Christmas carols. And every year I would organize people. I would get them to a little kid. I'm organizing people. Let's go sing. Let's go around the neighborhoods and sing Christmas carols. And it was I feel it was holy. It was sacred when our voices were coming together as angels. We were children singing to older people, and the most powerful, I can see it. I can see it in this moment going into this old 18th century building,
I
which
think we're
was,
over our recording hour.
oh no, we are? Did we
Wasn't
get
it? Oh,
stop
was it
recording?
08? Was it 08?
No, it
Three.
was after, it was, I think we're just stop. No, we're still recording, girl. We're good.
Oh, okay.
Good point. We know we have until we have another, thank you very much, another 8 minutes.
Oh,
But let me just say this piece that I remember being a kid and singing Christmas carols and going into this old folks home. And these people were old. I mean, they were old. They were in beds, they had white hair. And we went in, some of them could feel us and some of them couldn't feel us. And I felt that was sacred. These children bringing the memory and the fresh new experience of song, this harmony coming from children, being with people who had been, some of those people may have lived through the Civil War. I mean, because I was born in 1945. So if I'm there in 1955, those people might have lived through World War One. They probably did. And I just felt being with them and singing in unison brought us all together, and it was sacred. And my view, when I dissociated as a child and I pictured myself climbing up to heaven, that's why I was always looking for Jacob's ladder so I could get to heaven, because in heaven there were musical harmonies, there were harps, there were lyres, there were all of these things. And so for me, there's something sacred about music. And what you did, and what you talked about feeling joy. I don't mean to do the thing that one of our politicians does. No, hard. Um, but you did all of the elements of joy. And then, and if there are more than what we've already said, I mean, it was unison, it was rhythm. And what happens when our bodies get in rhythm with each other is that there is something bigger and something deeper than
right.
just
The
visual.
waves go out into the neighborhood,
That's
up
right.
into the sky. It's waves.
It is waves, and
It's
it
the
is
same thing with math, music, dance, all
math.
this. Math is in the same kind of sequences like as flowers. Uh, there's patterns in math that are match music. Yes.
You know, girl,
So remember,
if I
hertz.
had learned that about math in school, I would have had a better time. But I
It's
just
like,
saw it. I think I sent it out. There's this beautiful, like these bubbles of wonderful symmetry. They're like mandalas, and it's like a note of music captured in another
right, yes,
dimension.
you did do that. Like in water, like a drop,
Yes, that's
how a
what it
drop
looks
of
like.
water responds to a musical note. That is math.
I got it, sweetie. So what I'm feeling is, as a trauma survivor, there is joy available. If it's available in math, honey, it's available in a caterpillar. It's available in um that oak tree, right? It's a maple tree, all those leaves on the maple tree. It's available in this outfit that reminds me of
Roughly.
Yeah, ruffly. I mean, as a kid, I had to wear the ruffly stuff. And my mother was so troubled that she didn't get it when the ruffles started coming undone. And so I would go to school or I would go to church with the ruffles undone. And, no one would say anything, but they knew. They knew. So, but back to joy, sweetheart. When you went home yesterday, after all of that wonderful unison, connecting, loving, freeing, truth telling day,
Fondness, there was a lot of fondness vibes,
yes.
like
Kindness, fondness, love. And so you
people
said, you
brought
said,
food
you felt,
too. Everyone brought side dishes and we
of
ate
course.
together and oh,
Oh
it
man.
was-
What was your favorite, one of your favorite foods?
my favorite food was the ribeye steak, which I split mine in half with the organizer, Jenny.
Oh, I love me. I mean, I feel real bad for the cow, but I love a really,
Ribeye steak is the best. And it was on sale. When I went to the store, I had pulled out a piece of chicken out of the freezer I was going to take with me.
yeah.
Then when I went to the store and there was this big ass ribeye, I was like,
How much was it, girl? Because it's never on
it
sale
was like
here.
only 12.52 or something. It was in the
Ooh, that's
last
about,
chance
oh,
bin
okay.
or
Get now
something.
manager special.
Right. And I
Okay.
was like,
So,
that
so
is
you,
going with me.
you had this great, it was everything. It was all the best when families get together. It was like food, dance, singing, laughing together, hugging, um, being
Sharing my instruments. I mean,
truthful and sharing your food. And then you said you got home and that's where you felt joy. So can you talk about that?
I felt the joy in the circle. Like I felt it and I go, I'm feeling joy. This is joy to myself. And then I just started feeling it again, going with it. But then when I got home, I could reflect on that is it. And I really have not had that. I was able to remember one other time that I have had that sensation of joy, which was in high school I was a Jesus freak and I went on a retreat and they did a ritual Catholic thing where they raised the Holy Spirit and got the Holy Spirit swimming around, and I
Mhm.
felt that same sensation of
Ah,
on we're all together here. We got the same goals, we got the same rhythm, we're good, the Holy Spirit. And that's like the same joy that I got.
and I'm
So I have
gonna
had it once before, but mostly I have never recognized joy otherwise in my life.
tell me this, when you've been in love with somebody, have you felt joyous moments?
I don't know. I did really have a fun crush, but I don't think that was joy. That was more anticipating, more
Mhm. Right. Yeah,
a
you've
different.
talked about that. That whole
Yeah.
expectation thing is exciting. I feel like, yeah, I feel like I've had joy in relationships when I've been really with another whole, this is it, with another whole person. And I'm a whole person. And I'm not dependent upon that person to bring me joy, but together we bring each other joy. And that's nothing I ever saw as a child. So it's for me, being a trauma survivor, and you've just demonstrated it for us today, is we are constantly explorers. We are constantly exploring. I'm constantly seeking to find where is the beauty, where's the joy, where's the meaning in life. And I want to close from my part here by asking our listeners, because we have about a minute left, asking our listeners, when have you felt the joy that Denise has been describing or that I've been talking about? When have you felt like, as Shakespeare said, God's in God's heaven and all's right with the world, where some people call it the Holy Spirit, some people call it being out in nature, some people call it hugging a dog, some people call it loving, just hugging people. Some people call it singing in a choir in unison. Some
Right.
people call it just watching that ooey gooey caterpillar emerge as this
Yeah.
beautiful
Two,
mom.
I had two today.
Yeah, Lily and Sweetie.
Lily, Sweetie's waiting on the porch for me right now.
Take a picture of Sweetie. I got to see Sweetie.
All
So I
right.
want to thank Denise a whole lot, and for bringing up this topic of joy, because it is something that people get, that survivors get through drugs and alcohol and false means, the false gods, and then then we end up being thrown away by them.
Right.
It's like false relationship. I've been thrown away, or I've thrown myself away in false relationships. That's not joy. But
Now,
thank you so much. And listeners, when have you felt that you were experiencing, when did you know you were in joy
yep.
and joy? So, Denise, I'm so glad you could be here today. And I'm glad that the party happened too. I mean, you wouldn't want to miss that party when you thought it was today.
Right.
And let's get together. I want to hear what you'd like to say to conclude. And also, we need to come up with a topic, excuse me, a title for this program. Denise is really good at that. So, but we
Okay.
can do that afterwards if you, well, what would you like to say fairly well to people?
Uh, I hope you have joy more often than I have in my life, but if you haven't, you could.